Welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Education. As is normal with all education meetings, I ask members to silence their cell phones. If you wish to speak against or for a topic, you will be required to sign up on the sheet at the back. Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Here.
Senator Givens. Senator Higdon.
Here.
Senator Meredith.
Here.
Senator Neal. Senator Rawlings. Senator Reed.
Here.
Senator Thomas.
Here.
Senator Tishner. Senator Williams.
Here.
Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise. Representative Baker.
Here.
Representative Banta.
Here.
Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Bratcher.
Here.
Representative Brown. Representative Emily Callaway.
Present.
Representative Josh Callaway.
Present.
Representative Camuel.
Here.
Representative Kleins.
Here.
Representative Decker. Representative Doan.
Present.
Representative Fleming. Representative Grossberg. Representative Grossel.
Here.
Representative Hill.
Here.
Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative Massaroni.
Here.
Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Payne.
Here.
Representative Proctor.
Present.
Representative Rayburn. Representative Riley. Representative Rourks. Representative Stalker.
Present.
Representative Thompson.
Here.
Representative Truitt. Representative Wilner. Chair West.
Here.
Chair Lewis.
Here.
Chair Tipton.
I think we have a quorum. Today. First, I'd like to recognize Co-Chair Lewis. Thank you for your attendance today and all your hard work in education. Co-Chair Tipton is participating in a think tank on K-12 math education in Washington, D.C., so he's in a real good spot today. As you can see, you are witnessing a complete power grab and takeover by the House as they have split up the Education Committee in two committees, and so we have a lot of people in this room today. But all the information we will garner during the interim will be shared and taken in by a lot of members as we go through the interim. We're going to get, I've almost forgot, do we have any introductions of special guests by members? Senator Tishner.
Thank you, Chair. I have an intern with me for the summer, Carmen Parker, who is a rising star out of Shelby County. Although not a constituent of mine, I'm proud to have her join me through the interim.
Let's recognize her. Welcome her to committee. So we will jump right into our first subject area, Kentucky's new assessment and accountability model. We have Commissioner Fletcher with us, and I believe as some special guests. If y'all want to come to the table at the same time.
Well, good morning. I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and I'll allow my colleagues here to introduce themselves in their roles. My name is Robbie Fletcher. I am the Commissioner of Education, and this is hard to believe, almost one full year in this role. Very thankful to serve and very blessed to be serving in this role. And I'll start with my left.
I'm Jesse Bacon, Superintendent of Bullitt County Public Schools.
Brian Creasman, Superintendent of Fleming County Schools.
If you could make sure your green light's on please.
Got it. Brian Creasman, Superintendent of Fleming County Schools.
And Jennifer Stafford, Director in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support in the Office of Assessment and Accountability.
Thank you. Before you get started, Commissioner Fletcher, just so you know, we've allocated about 30 minutes for this subject matter.
Senator West knows me all too well to let me know up front, so we thank you for that. First of all, I want to thank our chairs. Senator West, thank you so much. Representative Lewis. I did get a call from Representative Tipton yesterday, too. A lot of questions, and, of course, he's been a part of this work also, too. So thank you for this opportunity. Also, thank you to each of our members for this opportunity. We're very excited to talk to you about approximately 2 years of work, maybe a little more, but also hundreds, maybe over 1,000 people have put a lot of work into this new accountability model that we're about to present to you. And before we get started, I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about some of the things that's going on in our schools currently. Did you know that we have a third grader in one of our schools that is already published on Amazon and selling books? Another one, we have a student in Western Kentucky that's part of his work-based learning has to step out of class on a regular basis to answer questions on how to fix drones from companies all over the world as part of his work-based learning. We also have a teacher apprenticeship program in one of our districts where a district is trying to address their work-based needs in the classroom, but they're also paying students to go back into the classroom and help and to learn how to be a teacher in their own way. We're also having defenses of learning where students are not only taking what they're learning in reading, mathematics, social studies, and science, but also soft skills such as how to collaborate, how to communicate, how to be involved in their community, critical thinking, and doing these defenses of learning where there are some of our seniors are walking out with job offers in high school. We also have students that are scrubbing in on surgeries, baby deliveries, as part of their high school experience. We have one district in Western Kentucky that does a freight box challenge. And for those of you that may not be familiar, this school entered into a grant with partnerships with other businesses locally and also across the Commonwealth to take a freight box, reframe the middle of it. It is now a medical office sitting in Liberia, in Africa. They not only learned how some trigonometry, geometry in their ag class, in their carpentry class, and applied that learning to build this office, they're also learning globally what's going on in that community. Not only that, the same organization they were working with said, can you build us a second one? They are working on their second freight box that serves as the only medical office in that community in Liberia. And the second one will be the only medical office that serves that community. Finally, for those of us in Western Kentucky, this is also spread throughout. There's a little thing called the Tiny House Challenge. We have schools that are going together to have their engineering classes design a tiny house, their carpentry classes to build a tiny house, their electricity classes are wiring the tiny house, their art classes are painting the tiny house, their business classes are working the budget of the tiny house, those tiny houses are being sold, and then those funds are coming back and they're building better tiny houses in years to come. That's happening in different spots throughout our Commonwealth. So what we want to do is to reimagine an assessment and accountability system that reimagines an assessment accountability system that not only encourages this, but catalyzes the spread of these type of opportunities throughout our Commonwealth. So that's what you're going to see that we're trying to push across our Commonwealth. So every single child, when they leave our walls, has this type of opportunity. And it's built on three. I think you do have our presentation. I believe it's been presented, been given to you, if I'm not mistaken.
It is not up currently. It's on the laptop. Someone down there will have to.
Have us a little bit of help, please, Brian. Sorry. Is that it? There we go. And what's that, S5? F5. There we go. So again, we're here to reimagine an accountability system that makes this possible for all students. This is built on three priorities, three pillars, if you will. First of all, vibrant learning experiences. I just talked about a lot of different vibrant learning, and there's so many more examples. Everything from solar cars being built in Somerset to other opportunities that we're seeing across our Commonwealth that are vibrant learning experiences that are both joyful and relevant to our students. If you had this type of opportunity in school, would you have ever missed? vibrant learning experiences to get our students in classes. But not only that, whatever they're doing is meaningful to when they leave our four walls. We're also encouraging innovation, especially around assessment. We firmly believe that math and reading are the foundation to make sure our students have the skills, have the foundational parts in order to move forward, but we're also looking at innovation to how can we encourage this type of learning to go throughout the Commonwealth. But also, too, I think the piece that makes this happen is the bold new part of collaboration with communities. Most, if not all, the opportunities I talked to you had to happen with a collaboration with a local business, with a hospital, with faith organizations. Those things could not happen without these three priorities that we make a part of everything we do here as a part of this new accountability system. This started with a council. We call it the Kentucky United We Learn Council. It was put together to put this vision together, those three main pillars. It's led by KDE, but it was also funded by a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. We have over 50 educators, students, family, community members, and legislators that have been a part of this work from across Kentucky. We've also had at least 18 different districts that have been a part of piloting a lot of the work that you see. And I've got two gentlemen here that are going to talk about their work here shortly. But the local laboratories of learning have helped us tremendously. And if you've been to a town hall, you've had the opportunity to see some of these people at work. When I say people, I'm talking about our school districts, our teachers, our parents, the folks that are serving our local communities. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the pathway and give you a little bit about the model itself, but we started by developing prototypes. We went to a legislative awareness. We went through a study phase. Then we went on to recommendations. We had a town hall area in there when we talked about with our in that winter of 2024. And man, that was a busy January, let me tell you, rescheduling those town halls to make sure that we got input from so many members. But now we're at the point where we want to engage more broadly with the General Assembly to say, this is our vision. How can we work together to get to the point where we need to be for our kids? This has been an iterative development process where we've sent out prototypes, got feedback, brought back information, made changes. It's been back and forth. As a matter of fact, we've gone through surveys, focus groups, reports, memos. We've talked to our Legislative Superintendent Advisory Council, our district assessment coordinators. We've talked to parents. We've talked to teachers. We sent surveys to everyone we could think of, business leaders, and we went through 4 prototypes. To talk a little bit about the difference between the prototypes versus the frameworks, the 4 prototypes are kind of, you could see it as multiple roads going in one direction. So these are the possibilities that we had after the first set of input. What are we looking at as far as local accountability? What does it look like as far as maybe work-based learning, competency-based learning, things of that nature? And then after that work, it started, our prototypes began in May 2024, which was 2 months before the commissioner's name. So I want to take an opportunity to thank Interim Commissioner Robin Kinney. She did an excellent job getting this work started. And when I say get it started, working with the Kentucky United We Learn Council to push forward toward this accountability model. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't take the time to say thank you to Robin Kinney along with our Kentucky United We Learn Council. Then we got into 4 frameworks. It was more along the lines of having one pathway that maybe just needed some tweaks, maybe needed some changes. Again, we went through surveys, focus groups, reports, memos, and we also went through a series of town halls. Senator Reed, I think, was at one of our town halls. Thank you for being there in Shelby County. We had others that were a part of that. I think Representative Jackson, I think you may have been at one, but we had several that were a part of those town halls. We had over 600 people to come and have input on these our Framework 3.0 at that time. We had 9 town halls with regional co-ops, so thank you to our co-ops throughout the state that hosted these for us. They did a great job. We appreciate that. We started with a welcome. We talked about vibrant learning. And again, trying to define how that's relevant work, that's joyful work for our students each and every day. And then we went to local accountability in action. What does it look like? There's so many districts engaged in this work already. This was something that our district started before we started talking about this at KDE. What does this look like? This was kind of a groundswell, if you will, of this work with local accountability. And of course, as we talked about Framework 2.0, Dr. Stafford gave a presentation on that. And then we asked for people, what are some things that impress you? What are some things that have to stay in? Then what questions do you have? Some of the common themes, we talked about different types of assessments. We talked about local accountability, vibrant learning, social studies, science, writing, student growth, equity concerns, inclusion of special education, and then also making sure that we meet federal requirements. So those are all topics that came up from our community members. Again, over 600 participants. And that brings us to where we are today with 4.0. Probably should call it 4.1. But with that being said, where we want to go forward, we want our students to have the type of vibrant learning experiences that I mentioned before. And I look around the room, so many of you have been part of Principal for a Day. You've seen some of this stuff firsthand. You've seen how districts are including students as part of the decision-making of their learning. You've seen districts that not only they test students where they are, then also make sure that they have a pathway moving forward to meet their needs in reading, mathematics, and other areas. But also, too, collaboration. One of my favorite slides in all the 9 town halls came from Woodford County. Woodford County had their logo, but also had the logos of districts that were collaborating with them to help develop a local accountability model. It included Logan County, Shelby County, Rowan County, Johnson County, Kenton County, and I'm sure I missed a couple, but I do this to say, look at, if you take and put pins on a map of Kentucky, that's a centralized district meeting with so many districts across the state to meet the needs of their students. Collaboration, not only with our business leaders, which is very important, not only with our parents, not only with our teachers, not only with our students, but also with each other to lift each other up. But also pushing towards local innovation. We want them to engage with their local communities. We want a system at the end of the day that requires districts to work with their parents, requires districts to work with their businesses, to be a part of this local accountability model. And then also to allow a lot of local choice. If you really want a system, and our moonshot has been, in order to build a prosperous Kentucky, we want an accountability system that is both meaningful and useful to all learners. Now, I will tell you, we're all from different parts of the state. What is meaningful and useful to maybe a student in Scott County may not be the same as what you're going to see in Bowling Green, or Lawrence County, or Newport, Pulaski, Fleming, Bullitt. There's a lot of individuality, if you will, a lot of characteristics that are specific to a district that we need to recognize, but we also need to grow. Again, emphasis on growth. If you have a local accountability model that gives you, I'll say, 100 across the board, it's not worth the paper it's written on, nor is it worth the website it's published to. This is about growth. What does your community expect of you? What do your parents expect of you? When I get a diploma from Greenup County, what exactly does that mean? We want our communities to be a part of that development, a part of that local accountability. And then we're also looking for that feedback and support. So when I say feedback and support, we're also looking at a lot of local flexibility to give them those opportunities, but also having some type of framework to help districts to build these local accountability models. Now, this gives us essentially an accountability model that comes in 2 pieces, if you will. The first part is the state accountability indicators that meets federal requirements. Now, if you think just for a second about the formula that is used to identify our comprehensive support and improvement schools, our CSI schools, our TSI schools, this part is directly, it will be used to identify those schools. There's no gameplay here. This is where we're going to come in and say, this is what we're looking at to make sure that we identify those schools that need extra help. As a matter of fact, I was in one of those districts once upon a time. I welcomed the State Department coming in years ago to say, how do we turn it around? How are we not meeting the math and reading that our students are needing or need most to be able to have those opportunities? Through a lot of help and a lot of great teamwork, we turned things around. But it came as a part of this state accountability piece. The first part is summative performance. If you think about summative performance, that's the year-end testing in math and reading. The difference that it's going to be a little different than what we had before. Not only are you looking at assessing the grade level standards, which is required. We have to assess grade level standards. We also want to be able to give our parents what is the grade level equivalency. If your student's a third grader, yes, you're proficient in math. Yes, you're proficient in reading, but are you reading on a third grade, fourth grade, or fifth grade reading level? So it's a little different for us. An adaptive test that meets those needs. Also, too, individual student growth. This is a change. Before, I use the word change there, the assessment of an accountability model, the accountability model dealt with change. Where were the third, fourth, and fifth grade students in reading last year versus this year? Now we want to look at individual students. Where did you get the student? Where did you take them? That's what we want to change in this model. We've invested so much. When I say we, I'm talking about the partnership that we've had with our legislators. You have invested so much into transition readiness, into our career technical. We're keeping that as a large part of our accountability model because we believe in the industry certifications, the dual credit opportunities, and other things that our students have. Of course, graduation rate. And one other change will be the English language proficiency. We're changing the option to allow students, all ELL students, to take the test in the first year, not a part of accountability. The second year would be a part of the growth, and then the third year would be a part of the overall summative performance. Representative Jackson, you've talked with us a lot about that. Thank you so much for your input on that, by the way. And then, of course, we already have a climate and safety survey that'll be a part of this, and that's 4% of the overall model. Now, the science assessment is in italics because we've talked about the formula pieces for CSI, TSI, ATSI. Science assessment, we are required to give a science assessment, and we want to, a uniform assessment to all students, but we're going to report that separately. We're going to report science out separately to give us an opportunity to work and focus in on science in a totally different area. It will not be a part of the CSI, TSI status calculation. It will be reported on its own, but it's still part of that federal requirement. Now, that's the foundation of when we talk about state accountability, how we're going to let CSI, TSI, how do we help those schools that may be falling behind when it comes to reading and mathematics? Notice the focus on reading and mathematics here. Senator Rawlings, one of the challenges that he gave me as commissioner, says, Dr. Fletcher, we want you to focus on reading and mathematics. I think we're honoring that today. Now, to me, the next part is where we really embrace change. We embrace the opportunity that we have in classrooms for that vibrant learning, for innovation, for collaboration, and it comes through local accountability. That's a whole different level when we talk about local accountability. When you are accountable to your local people, what they expect, that is so important. We're asking districts, now actually we'd want it to be shall language, not may, shall language for districts to be able to have locally determined indicators. Like, for example, we have some districts that look at student well-being. What percentage of our students are involved in extracurricular, co-curricular activities, and how do we increase that? If you look at some research on student success, a great indicator of student success is how involved are they outside the classroom. So we have districts that go beyond the paper pencil to have that added to it. We're looking at interim assessments to take the place of like the MAP, STAR, and iReady, and these are optional. Districts could opt into this. They don't have to take this on, but it would be an optional piece that we would offer. And then also optional science grade, off-grade testing. The required piece of the local accountability is each district would have to determine how they're going to handle vibrant learning. How are they reporting that to their constituents? Writing. How are they going to handle writing, and how are they going to handle social studies? And even though I'm very enthusiastic about this local accountability piece, I think it's so important that we bring two practitioners that have started this work and have been on this work probably for one of them for over 4, maybe 5 years, and another's been through the Profile of a Learner work, but also local accountability for their first year. So, I will turn it over. Superintendent Bacon.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about our work in Bullitt County and where we're headed with local accountability in our community. I want to say that all this work is really driven by one thing. We want to make sure that we're meeting the expectations of our parents and our business community in terms of the product that we produce as a result of a graduate coming through Bullitt County Public Schools. And this entire process has been really about making sure that we honor that. And so I just wanted to go through a little bit of what our process has been throughout this journey and where we are now and where we anticipate we'll move to as it relates to this work moving forward, not only this year, but in future years beyond. And so we, at the beginning of this school year, created a coalition of community members to serve on a committee to really have some intense conversations about what it means and what the expectations are of our schools and of our districts as a result of you sending your child with us for 13 years. And from that, we gathered all those folks that had an application process, went through to make sure we had equal representation from all across our districts. We have 3 really districts within our district in Bullitt County Schools, and we wanted to make sure we had equal representation from all areas of the community, as well as business leaders and community leaders. We also had a representative, Peyton Griffey, was instrumental and participated on this panel as well for us throughout the course of the year. We met 6 times throughout the course of the school year, and we started to identify again, what are the expectations that our parents and business and community leaders have of us as their local public school district. And from that, we started with the end in mind, and what we were really after is we want to make sure that we create a system where we can easily communicate what our strengths are as a district, what are our areas of improvement as a district, and then how are we addressing those areas of improvement as it relates to the expectations of our local community. And so at the end of all of this, we want to have a public-facing dashboard where folks can easily go and look at what are the expectations that have been identified? What is the evidence that's been collected to speak to our accountability towards those expectations? And then where are the issues and areas of improvement, and what are those plans to improve the areas that need to be improved? And so we kept that central to the conversation throughout the entire time. This just shows you some photos of the work that was happening during these 6 sessions where we met together and started to really dive into this work. And what we produced as a result of this were 6 pillars that our community says we're important in terms of the expectations that we established as a community. And within each pillar are specific expectations and benefits that align to that pillar. And that's what the work that happened throughout those 6 meetings. So one is student learning, and the expectations that go along with student learning, you can see are listed there. Foundational learning. We want to make sure that our students know core academic knowledge, the standards, that they have real world authentic experiences to demonstrate mastery of those standards, that we have personalized learning options that are developed based on the individual strengths of the students. That they're aligned to needs, course offerings, resources, interventions, support systems are tailored to the individual needs of students, and that we have effective teachers in every single classroom. Those are the expectations that were identified in the student learning pillar as a result of this work. The second pillar was safety and well-being. The student and our parents and community says they want to make sure that our buildings are safe and conducive, that no matter if you're coming to school as a part of the learning school day, or if you're coming to an extracurricular event or activity, they want to make sure that our spaces are safe, where students and parents and community members can participate without fear or distraction. They want personal and social development. They want their students to develop life skills and contribute to the overall health and success of them. They want to have friendships and connections. They want their students to experience that. They want their students to grow and develop in having respect for themselves and others. And they want opportunities for students to be able to practice empathy. We also identified physical and operational care. This is where we want to make sure that we're hiring and retaining the right people, that we're keeping everyone in the loop about the resources that we're utilizing and we're spending and how we're allocating those resources, both monetary resources and human resources. We want to make sure that those resources are aligned to the district goals that have been identified by the community and by our parents. We want to make sure that we have trained and supported staff, not just for our teachers, but all support staff across the district who are vital to the work that we do for our students and the opportunities that we provide them. We wanted to make sure that community collaboration and engagement was present, that our community members are truly partners with us in this work. Our parents are truly partners with us in this work, and our students understand the importance of citizenship and what it means to give back to their community. We also wanted to make sure that we have engaged and well-rounded students. We want to make sure that students have a voice and they have an opportunity to share their experiences and share and have input in school and district level decisions. That they do work that's meaningful to them and relevant to them, and that will help them choose a career pathway that's going to make them a productive member of their community, that they have an opportunity to expand in their creativity, learn experiences, innovate, problem solve, and that they're able to really focus on what they're passionate about. They can find what they're passionate about and find their niche to where they're going to be successful in the future and down the line. And then the final pillar that we identified was life readiness, and the expectations that surfaced in that pillar were to ensure that our students were ready for the future, that they have the knowledge, skills, and credentials, that they have really truly mastered those competencies that are identified in our graduate profile that our parents and community say are the most important things for their students to know and be able to do by the time that they graduate, that they create habits of lifelong learning. They understand and know when they graduate, their learning journey doesn't stop. They have to continue, and they're always going to continue learning throughout the course of their life, and that they own their work, that they want to take responsibility and ownership and initiative for the work that they provide. And so this was identified, again, through those intentional conversations with our community leaders and our parents who chose to be a part of this steering team for us. And so the next step for us as a district is we have several internal teams that we meet with on a regular basis as well. We have a student leadership group called the Bullitt County Youth Coalition. We have a certified advisory team that has representation from teachers in every building in our district. We have a classified advisory team that has representative from all classified staff in every building in our district. We have a leadership team that is representative of our principals, and then our district leadership team as well. So our work beginning next year will be to go to those teams and start to identify pieces of evidence that we can begin to pull that speak to how we're accounting for the expectations and benefits that have been identified by this community team. And the way we envision this looking for us in our district is each individual pillar will have community teams that review these pieces of evidence. And there'll be quantitative evidence and there'll be qualitative evidence as well. It won't all be numerical because not all of these things can be quantified by a number. But then we're going to rely on the community and these pillar groups and teams to tell us, is this evidence sufficient or is there more needed? Are we good enough where we say we want to be? Are we truly meeting the expectation, or is there more work to be done? And those conversations are what's going to drive our improvement initiatives and drive the decisions about how we spend our resources and time in terms of what we want to improve and how we want to improve those things. And so what this has done for us is really brought our community into our work in a really true, authentic way to help them understand the challenges that we face and also the opportunities that we have in front of us and the experiences that we're trying to design for our students so we can ensure that we are creating the best people we can possibly create that will be ready to go out and contribute meaningfully to our community. And so this is a 2-year process for us to get to this point. The first year we spent just educating our district leaders and our principals about what community accountability is and why it's so important and why we need to engage authentically with our parents and business leaders. And then this year, the year that we just concluded, was all about gathering that information from our parents and community to help us start to define what this system looks like. Next year will be about gathering pieces of evidence, going back to our pillar teams to really have that conversation around, is this good evidence or should we be looking at other pieces? Are there other things that you expect from us? And then you tell us where we need to improve in these areas and we'll start to create plans around those things. So this is how we've addressed it in our district. And our district leaders, our parents, and our community members who have been a part of this are really excited about having a true, authentic voice and then be able to provide input around the work that we're doing every single day with students.
And again, Superintendent Bacon this has been a 2-year process. So they're, I want to say relatively new to the work because they've been at it for 2 years. But we also have Superintendent Creasman, who's been at this work for a longer period of time. It's more in a refinement phase. So I'll turn it over to Superintendent Creasman.
Yeah, so those of us who are from farming communities, you can say we've seen a lot of frost in the mornings with our accountability model. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really create an accountability model that's meaningful to our communities. It's responsive, it's transparent, and it's about shared ownership of what's happening in our schools. If anything positive came out of COVID, it was that communities want more voice in our schools. And we need to listen. And this is an opportunity for us to listen and try to meet those values, those aspirations, not just here in Fleming County, but regionally as well, while still meeting common expectations. There's not a week that goes by that I'm not speaking to someone in Kentucky or a nation across the nation about local accountability. So I always give two disclaimers about this. This has nothing to do with anti-testing. If you look at our accountability models, if you look at Bullitt's, if you look at Greenups, if you look at Shelby's, if you look at Logan's, if you look at Kenton's or Rockcastle, we're testing. We just think we're testing better. And if you also look at our accountability model, we hold higher expectations than what the state is holding. And the reason I say that is one of the things that our community really expressed to us with our local accountability model is, let's move past game show contestants. Instead of just answering A, B, C, or D, we want our kids in Fleming County to walk out. I know some of you all may not remember this, but MacGyvers. Those Swiss Army knives of skills that they can really apply those skills to real world situations. So you see in our accountability model where we expect our students to perform. So yes, they still take A, B, C, D, multiple choice, standardized criterion referenced assessments. We test a lot, but we also require students to, let's see what you've got in the real world. So you'll see students in our local supermarket doing math performance assessments, or you'll see them in the banks, or you'll see them doing community service, learning about civics. That civics exam, that 100-question civics exam is important, but do they really know how a bill gets passed? So we really try to hone in on those performance skills as well. And one of the things our community also said was they wanted real-time data. One of the things that it's always plagued any state accountability model and federal accountability model is the lag time, especially here in Kentucky. We assess in late April, May. We do not get those results back until July, August. You don't get them until November, typically. We can't do anything with that. So with our community, they wanted real-time data. So if you look at our accountability model, it's public. Anybody can access it. You can see what we're doing with reading across the board, kindergarten through 11th grade, reading, writing, and math. We're not trying to hide anything. The KSA, when we took it a couple of weeks ago, it was just an event. We prioritize what we're doing with our local accountability model, but they're not competing. We just think that we've got to make sure that our kids know how to apply these skills, not just answer a question, but can apply those skills in the real world. And the last thing I'll say is we really listen to our community in looking at multiple data points. When we go to the doctor and they typically tell us to get a second opinion. We don't do that with student reading. And the reason I say that, there's an opportunity here. And many of you have heard this story. Many of you have been in Fleming County touring our career and technical facilities, is that, if you look at a lot of our welders, you would think they're illiterate, or if you look at their ACT or KSA. But it's a funny mystery to me that they can pass OSHA 10 exam and the Lexile is 1300. I don't even have a Lexile of 1300. So is it that they can't read, or are we just boring them to death or not making reading relevant? With local accountability, we can really swoop in there and modify, personalize those learning experiences for students and still look at state accountability data, but we also have this data point to say yay or nay. Can this kid read, or can he? This is a great opportunity that really empowers our communities to be actively involved in the accountability model that they've not been in 40 years. They've been passive recipients like many of us. This time they have to be involved, and they want to be involved. And I just applaud what's happening in Bullitt, but also these other districts. You've got 18 districts in L3 cohorts. There's more now, the KDE expanded. There's a lot of great work happening around this. And I just appreciate your opportunity, the opportunity to speak to you about this.
And I think I'm going to put a young lady on the spot. Our intern from Shelby County could probably testify in our place when she has the opportunity, if you want to ask her some questions over, because a lot of great work going on with local accountability there in Shelby County. So I appreciate just the conversation before. But to close out, if you look at where we are Let's see. I'll get to the very end there if you could find it. Jesse, last slide, please. If you'll notice, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. While we can probably work and go through the RFP process and look at our assessment part, our math tests, our reading tests, things of that nature, it's going to take us a little bit of opportunity to have a new assessment that is adaptive. But also, too, districts that are working in this local accountability area, we're looking at in Bullitt County 2 years, and they're another year out. This is going to take time. So once, Lord willing, that this is passed, we want to have a pilot phase with districts to make sure that they're ready for local accountability. Again, we can move into state testing. When we talk about the state testing piece, that's still there. And we still get that CSI, TSI, ATSI information so we can help those districts. But we want to make sure districts have the opportunity to grow a local accountability model that is meaningful and useful to their students. So we would start with a pilot phase. And we have at least 18 districts, I think, that are a part of that pilot phase already, if you will, that we're ready to move into more of a local accountability model for those folks. Then an expansion phase. How do we make sure that we team up those districts? If you remember what I talked about with Woodford County, think about the partnerships that are happening, that districts are lifting each other up. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see on social media where administrators in one district are meeting with administrators in the other to talk about their local accountability models and how they can lift each other up as they move forward. How do we expand that? Then, of course, sustainability. Again, our main goal is to make sure that our students have vibrant learning experiences. If we go through this model in 4 or 5 years and nothing's changed, then we've failed. There are so many great things, but we want to expand this throughout the Commonwealth. We want to make sure our kids have those vibrant learning opportunities that our communities are proud of, that our communities are a part of, that our chambers of commerce, that our faith leaders, our parents, our students are proud of. Now, that's all as far as you talk about with two pieces. Again, I'll close with this. We have the state accountability with federal, meeting federal requirements, and of course the local accountability, which I'm so glad to present a little more on today. So, time? Chair West.
Thank you, Commissioner. Excellent presentation by everyone today. We're going to take a moment now for some questions. I'm going to cut it off right now as it pertains to our current list. We have 4 on the list. If you could, with this new vast membership that we have, if you could keep your questions tight and concise. Representative Bojanowski.
Okay. It may be hard. I have so much to say, but I'll tighten it up. So I'm a special ed teacher. I provided accommodations for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to take the KSA. What I'll say is the KSA is not, as it is today, is not meaningful nor useful to educators or students. For example, our 5th graders had 10 hours and 20 minutes of scheduled testing time. In comparison, the Kentucky bar exam is 12 hours. So we are really, one of our administrators was just like, why are we doing this to these kids? They work so hard, they try so hard, but how meaningful is it? And these 10 hours, 20 minutes worth of testing provide no information to me as a teacher to better teach my students. So my question is, and I'm so enthusiastic about the work that you're doing, Dr. Fletcher, and your kind of final product you're coming up with. But so if we cut out a certain number of state required assessments, my question is if a student takes a math assessment and a reading assessment based on current data, how well does that data explain how they do on the other tests? Because what I'll tell you for some of my students who I test, they're going to be novice. Based upon their math or reading assessment, they're going to be novice in every other social studies, editing, on demand. Do you have data on seeing how much of the other scores are explained by math and reading?
We have a lot of correlation data that districts have done individually to talk about how their individual assessments match up. So you'll have some districts that may use iReady, STAR, or MAP to inform the decision making. It's like Dr. Kreisman spoke about. We're not getting back our assessments until the fall. And one of the pieces that I kind of went over a little bit was the interim assessments. So what we're hoping is that interim assessment piece that we would be able to give you something that's aligned with the state assessment that could give you instructional data. If you gave it in the fall, it could help you tomorrow. But also, too, I want to go back to the local accountability piece. We have, one of our districts told a story about doing a defensive learning in a special needs classroom, an FMD classroom. Again, these are some of our students with some of the greatest challenges. They brought in their defense team to watch these students to talk about processes, to talk about how mathematics, to talk about even as writing as they could, to go through a process for making ice cream. So they took their skills that they learned from communicating, collaborating in other areas in this one district to allow these students to demonstrate learning to their parents as a special needs student. How much more does that mean than, okay, you're proficient on a math test? Now, again, we want our students to have those skills. We're not trying to demean that. But again, to have those type of experiences for special needs students, I think is imperative. You're welcome.
Representative Emily Callaway.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for coming and testifying. Thank you specifically to Superintendent Bacon, not only for coming and testifying and sharing with my colleagues some of what I've seen firsthand as I go and tour different facilities in the district. I really want to reiterate, we sit in here and we look at charts and data and we do these assessments. It's really good to see results, and it's good to see some of the implementation and the morale. I can, again, just testify from my own experience meeting with administrators in the district, specifically Principal Vincent, who works with the technical
Area Technology Center. Yeah,
ATC, right. He works hands-on with the students. It's amazing to see morale is the word I'll use there. Just to hone in on these students' skills, and then Principal Lynch, the work that she's doing at North Bullitt, and the new school, the innovative designing. Again, I just want to reiterate that while we talk about all this, it is really good to see the implementation, and so I'm encouraged by that. I'd like to see it in the other district that I represent, that I'm not going to brag about it all right now. But the question that I have, I'll keep it. We have a timeline specifically related to that federal grant. Is that what I understand? I mean, I see the projection for 2026, but there was mention of a time meeting requirements for a timeline. So I just want to hear more.
I'm going to turn the tough question over to Dr. Stafford.
Sure. Thank you. We received a CGSA, the competitive grant on state assessments from the U.S. Department of Education. That's a 4-year grant. We received that in 2022. We're in the 3rd year now, so we have 1 more year left on the CGSA grant to work with that funds the Kentucky United We Learn Council.
If I may, Representative Callaway, one of the things I want to also point out, we are so thankful for the funds that this body and the larger body has given for letters training, for the science of reading, and the numeracy work. If you'll notice, this is still a big part of our accountability model. Those serve as foundational skills, but how do we take that and apply it into those vibrant learning experiences that you're seeing in Bullitt County? So again, we're very thankful for that funding. And of course, this will come at a cost, and that'll be at a different meeting, but we'll talk more about that later on. But right now, we're going to talk about great things, and then we'll talk about funding later.
Senator Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. Very exciting. I call it a moonshot, but I believe in moonshots. And the question I have is not a criticism. It's just hopefully build a better product. But starting with your first slide on the priorities, creating a bold new future through collaboration with communities. My concern is these folks are going to say, no surprise, is rural communities. And well, you've got limited resources and limited opportunities for collaborative relationships. How do we address that kind of inequity? I'm thinking specifically about, you mentioned having a collaborative relationship with the hospital. 42 counties out of 120 in Kentucky do not have a hospital. So how do those students in rural communities get exposure to those kind of opportunities? And there's a whole world out there that we don't get the exposure to in rural Kentucky because of lack of resources that other people get. So how do we address that inequity? And in the vein of healthcare as well, can you elaborate a little bit as to why science is going to be off tested? I think that's the term that you used, because that concerns me. I know reading scores and math certainly give me the priority, but our sciences, we're very lagging as well. As a matter of fact, nationally, we're 12th out of 37 nations. And so if we make it kind of offline, does that make science less of a priority? So I guess that's two questions for you. Thank you.
Okay, the very first question, we're seeing not only districts work with their local community, but they're also collaborating with neighboring districts. I can think of at least 2 districts that work together so that they go through, Menifee and Montgomery is a good example. The students in Menifee County are going to Montgomery County to work there. And so there's a lot of collaboration among superintendents, among districts to say, okay, how do we make sure that all students have these type of opportunities? We also have like the Computer Science Initiative statewide that, again, is receiving some funding to give students those opportunities online. So making sure that students have connections and collaboration, not with just local communities, which is very important. And I'm originally from a rural area. There, the local businesses were helpful, but it was also very important to work around those that were surrounding our county too. So it gives us a global picture. But also too, can we also connect online, use the technology to connect with someone? For example, if you were wanting to look at veterinary experiences, you're probably going to connect with Murray State. Even from Lawrence County, we connected with Murray State on those type of experiences for our students. So using the available technology to make that happen is what we really need to do. As far as science, I see this a little bit differently. We're pulling science out and having, it's not going to be a part of the formula, but it's still being reported on its own. So there's a larger focus. To me, there's a larger focus than putting it into a formula, because we know that science has to play an important role as we move forward, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. And we have one district, Warren County, I'll mention, that's working with IBM very extensively now to talk about how can AI impact classrooms. It's impacting our classrooms already, but how do we do this in a meaningful way? So that science being pulled out separately to me is so important because we can focus on it in its own right. That way it's not part of a different formula. So having that reported separately I think is very important. It gives us an opportunity to.
Representative Decker.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Fletcher, thank you for this report. Excellent. Enjoyed hearing about it. Served on an L3 committee in the past under the guidance of Mike Hesketh, who I understand is still on your committee. I want to congratulate all of the people who serve on that. It takes a lot of time, a lot of focus, a lot of effort, and I appreciate you all doing it. I do think that I appreciated hearing the emphasis still on skills and testing, but I think that community involvement and allowing, especially through the defenses of learning, to bring the community in to see that every single person I talk with who has attended one of those is not only impressed with the student, but with the school system. So I appreciated your comment about the fact that sometimes the communities just receive education, but here they have input in it. And thank you for all the work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Decker. And one thing I want to emphasize, this has been a team Commonwealth adventure. This has been something that you've seen well over 1,000 educators and people across the Commonwealth to be a part of. Our Kentucky United We Learn Council has done a lot of work to lay the foundations and get input. We've had 18 districts now, probably 20 districts that have been a part of this work. But we also have other districts that may not be L3 that's contributing. We also have people within KDE that have worked very diligently to make this happen. We've had outside partners nationally to be here. So this model is truly built by people from all parts of our Commonwealth. And we hope, and our goal is to spread that type of excitement, that type of learning that you saw in Shelby County to make sure all of our kids have that same opportunity. Because again, we have students that are doing defenses of learning as seniors walking out with job offers. That's amazing. But thank you for the kind comments. We appreciate it.
Next, I had a question on Nate, but I'm going to refrain myself and allow Representative Stalker. She had a question to chime in.
Thank you so much. My question is around poverty. So nothing in all of the presentations that were given and in the slideshows, and I was looking for what I believe to be is one of the biggest barriers to education, which is poverty, and that was not mentioned. And so I would love any thoughts, feedback from you all about how do we, because everything that you've presented is fantastic, right? But if we don't have our students having their basic needs being met, right? I know it was mentioned earlier about extracurricular activities and the correlation to that, but I'm like, extracurricular activities, what about housing and food insecurity and transportation, right? If we can't get the basics, I don't think that we're ever going to be able to reach that full potential for students in the schools. And I have said for years, as somebody who had kids that went to Title I schools and had one of the last standing housing projects in Louisville, Kentucky, sit literally behind my child's elementary. I saw firsthand, right, some of the challenges, and I've always said we've held our schools hostage for what are social service issues. And so I'm just curious to learn about any sort of conversations that are had about those foundational needs to help you guys really build on the things that you want to do, like the joyful and, learning and all of that, which I think is great and is needed. I just worry about our ability.
Okay, I'm going to let our superintendents have an opportunity to answer that. I'll start with Superintendent Bacon.
Yes, some of those issues came up during the course of our conversations around those pillars and expectations that go into those pillars. And what we're finding with those is it's creating more awareness around those particular issues. And so that will become a part of the expectation conversations that we have in those pillars, is making sure that we are accounting for those things, making sure we have students who are struggling with poverty issues have the same opportunities to participate in all of the different activities that are available to any student in our district. And I think bringing that local community together around those issues is creating more awareness and creating more opportunities for partnerships that will allow us to fill gaps where they need to be filled. And so by engaging in the local community authentically the way that we have, we're actually bringing more of those issues to surface. And our parents and community are letting us know, hey, we've got an obligation here to address those issues as well as non-academic issues and the academic issues. And the same in our current accountability model, there's not really much there to address those issues that don't become priorities because they're not a part of the conversation. But what we're finding with this is that is being surfaced as a result of these conversations that we're having.
Yeah. So, if you look at what the Frisk and all of our communities do, they do a really good job of trying to close that gap as much as possible. But just like what Dr. Bacon was talking about, when we bring the community in, they understand what's going on and they understand some of the barriers. But we have to form those relationships with those communities. We're fortunate in Fleming. I have a phenomenal community that we do, if the school needs it, the community's there. And our Frisk staff, also our local, civic organizations like Rotary, Lions, they're ready to jump in and try to help as much as possible. It's real. I grew up in poverty. I get what you're saying. But I think if by doing this with the community, not to the community, I think it helps address a lot of that. But also creating these vibrant learning opportunities opens up avenues for students that they didn't have by experiencing these real world situations that, in a lot of our poverty stricken areas, they don't get. Because all we're doing is really targeting testing. This way, what the state board and the commissioner, KDE, is really signaling, they want every kid, all 600,000 plus students in Kentucky, to have those vibrant learning experiences, poverty, rich, urban, rural, no matter what. And I think by working with their communities, and I think the Cool Council, I think that was a really great move by the state by forming that, because it brought statewide leaders to the table. And they also discussed this. I've been in some of those school councils where they were discussing that same issue.
And I'll add to that, Senator West, if I may.
Finish up.
Thank you, sir. I'll give you an example. We talk about this local accountability piece is just as much about growth as anything else. So you have districts that are going together to say, okay, we want our students to have more work-based learning opportunities. So now what barriers do we have? Well, we have students that may not have transportation. I was in a district where we made it a priority to fund transportation for our students. We took buses out to make sure our students could go to the local hospital or could go to the local schools, other local schools. One of our other elementary schools, or to go to our local businesses because they couldn't afford the money, couldn't afford for that themselves. We made it a priority in our budgeting process to say we're going to address those barriers. So when we hear from our local communities to say, okay, we're worried about this barrier, then that's part of our improvement process to say, what do we need to reallocate to make sure all students get these opportunities? So whether it be with our Frisky centers, where we're talking about food insecurities, where we talk about our mental health partners that we have throughout our districts, we're trying to meet those needs along with to make these other vibrant learning experiences possible for all students. But again, it goes back to when you hear from your community, and these are our priorities, then we're going to reallocate funds to make sure every student has that opportunity.
Unfortunately, have to be the last word today on this subject matter. Thank you to everyone for presenting. You all did an excellent job. As you can see, we could have spent the rest of the whole 2-hour period on this subject, but we appreciate that. I'm sure we'll hear more as we move forward, especially as we get into session. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
I'm going to call an audible here now. I'm going to switch the order on us a little bit. We're going to move immediately to the federal education policy and its impact on states. This is a 20-minute segment, and as we were preparing this meeting, what this is meant to do is to provide all the members an immediate snapshot of what may or may not be happening at the federal level as of today. And this will be a Zoom. She's not. Committee will stand at ease. She is joining now, so it may take just a moment, but that's the purpose of this meeting. This portion of the meeting is to get the most latest information we can on what's happening at the federal level.
Go ahead and say something to her. She's there now.
Hello, can you hear us?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, yes.
I can hear
We
you.
can see you and we can hear you.
Perfect.
Sorry for the change of order, but our members are ready to hear the most recent federal update.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will you be doing
Am
the
I-
PowerPoint, or do we need to do that for you?
What would you prefer? I can do either.
Do it yourself. That'd be great. You've got
Okay,
about, just
good.
so you know, you have about 20 minutes.
Okay.
You got a hard stop at about 20 minutes.
Okay, I can do it. Give me one moment. Okay. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, I will get right into it. I will try to have time for questions as well. So there's a lot going on in DC, as we know, and so I really tried to focus on what kind of the key actions and pieces that states really should be aware of and thinking about in terms of the impact. So starting with just the new Department of Education under Secretary McMahon, her 3 stated priorities have continued to be literacy, school choice, and returning education to the states. Obviously, that last piece is the most relevant here. And you'll see that kind of throughout all of the updates that I'll provide. So I wanted to start off with the conversation around, or the topic of, the elimination of the Department of Education. We've seen that in the news. There's been a lot of coverage around that potential. And I think it's really important to note that only Congress can truly eliminate the Department of Education. So, we've seen a lot of coverage, but at the end of the day, the administration cannot eliminate it. It would require Congress, an act of Congress, which they famously don't move very fast. But it would require 60 votes in the Senate, and that's not politically feasible right now. So the idea of eliminating the department is not really moving forward, but we'll talk about some of the actions that they've taken to reduce it. But something that we have been really trying to focus on as well is, even if the department is eliminated, I think it's important to acknowledge that IDEA and Title I, those key formula programs specifically from the K-12 perspective, would continue. So any conversations around eliminating the department is not also saying that we should eliminate those key formula programs as well. So even if the Department of Education were to go away tomorrow, IDEA, Title I, those really key formula programs would continue. So in kind of on this topic of eliminating the department, kind of talking about the importance and the role of the Department of Education, we saw an executive order from the president that really underscored and underlined the fact that the administration cannot eliminate the department. And so in it, he says, to the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law, the Secretary of Education to take all steps to return authority over to the authority over education to states and local communities. And so with that, we saw a significant reduction in force at the department, where they laid off about 50% of the staff. It's important to note here that the RIF, as we call it, has been challenged, and it's going through litigation right now. So it's currently under a preliminary injunction. So those folks have been brought back, but they're not necessarily working. And so in terms of the actual impact of what has been eliminated or the people that have let go on states, I think it's so important to talk about that, even as we wait for the court case to play out. Kind of the three big buckets that I wanted to flag for states here is the National Center for Education Statistics. That's a lot of the research, Common Core data, all of those different things. But specifically when it comes to states and for K-12 education, I think the big thing to focus on here is that NCES, in partnership with the Census Bureau, work together to determine the numbers and the allocations for programs like Title I. And so that, as we know, Title I allocations are based on the small area income poverty estimate data that is based off of census data, but it's worked in partnership with NCES to determine how much funding those states receive and districts receive as well. And so we're focused on this to make sure that even if this team has gone away, to ensure that allocations still go out in a timely manner. And so that's something that we're watching closely. The Office of State and Grantee Relations, this is probably the one that would impact states the most. This is the team, the office that states would contact if they have questions about, certain grant programs or allocations. Kind of the people that you would talk to at the department are no longer there, and they haven't been replaced or pointed in a different direction. And then the Office of English Language Acquisition, it's been eliminated all but one person. So if you have any questions about your Title III funds, how you're able to use it, kind of what are the best practices for supporting these students, they are no longer there. Some other actions I wanted to flag from the department, and then I'll get into the budget, which I think is far more relevant here, is a few different things. So we have ESSER late liquidation changes. As we know, the elementary and secondary stabilization education emergency relief funds that came out during COVID, we were ending the deadline last year, and the administration allowed for extensions or late liquidation for projects that weren't able to spend all of their money by the deadline. And all of those projects had already been approved. And then in March of this year, the department said that they would no longer recognize those late liquidations. They were basically canceling all those extensions and requiring states to resubmit project-specific requests. So basically, states would be resubmitting their own requests for extensions or on behalf of school districts. And we have seen that moving forward, the department has already denied extensions for projects that are not directly related to services for directly provided to students. So we've seen, a lot of projects around improving ventilation, improving the environment of school buildings and improving those, professional development. All of those projects have been denied the extensions. And so I think in the case of the states, if Kentucky has some of those programs or falls into that category that you had extensions for and no longer has it, I think the state's going to have to determine if they want to continue those programs or not. That is under litigation, but we understand that it's only the states that engaged in the litigation that would be able to get relief, I think, as it moves forward. Grant cancellations, that's something that we've been following closely. We've seen grant cancellations and discontinuations. It depends on what program you're looking at. So discontinuations is kind of, you get your grant funding for this year, but then they won't be moving forward with the grant. And then we also saw cancellations where they were notified that they would not be receiving any more funding. I think of note here is two key programs, the mental health. So we have the school-based mental health professional demonstration grants, as well as the mental health services professional grants. These were grants either at the state level or at the district level, really focused on increasing and training the number of mental health professionals who are in schools. And about 260 of those have been discontinued. Secretary McMahon has stated that the department plans on reissuing those grants and kind of rebidding them, but as of now, some of those have been paused. And then the department did just announce their supplemental grant priorities. So this is something that every secretary, every Department of Education can do. They can outline their priorities when they're looking at competitive grants, what they're going to prioritize. And here they have done evidence-based learning, expanding school choice, and of course, returning education to the states. That's clearly in line with the priorities that she has stated overall. But I think here what's notable, obviously, is the returning education to the states means that any grant program or states, specifically state agencies like your state education agency, the governor, anytime that you will be an eligible entity, if you apply, you will be prioritized. So that is the Department of Education. And then I'm going to pivot to the budget, which I think is probably far more interesting and relevant. So first to start with just regular appropriations. Fiscal year 25, as we know, the full year continuing resolution was passed in March. I usually wouldn't talk about something that's already been done, but I think it's important to flag here that some of the changes that we saw, some delays in allocations that would and is impacting states right now. So we saw delayed allocations of IDEA and Title I. They went about 6 weeks out too late. So that's just the numbers getting to the states, and then states can figure out how they're going to allocate the dollars. It is our understanding that it won't impact the ability of the dollars going out on July 1 like they usually would, but it's putting more pressure on states to kind of turn those numbers around more quickly than they usually would. The Rural Education Achievement Program, that program has two different parts. One part is directly administered by the Department of Education directly to districts. That application is usually out in the first week of February, and it did not come out until the first week of May this year. And so if you have, these are really small districts, small rural districts, and they usually have 5 to 6 months to turn around an application, and they were given only 30 days. And so that's something to note. And then we are still waiting on, I have Title IV listed here. Those allocations actually did go out, but we're still waiting on Title II. That's about $2.19 billion that will go out for professional development, supporting new teachers. And those numbers, states are still waiting to get those numbers in terms, so then they can let districts know how much they are going to get for fiscal year 25. So that was just something I wanted to flag because we have been watching and we know that it's a little unusual. For fiscal year 26, I did send these slides actually on Thursday, and the president didn't come out with his full budget for fiscal year 26, so I can talk a little bit about that. But in terms of, and all of these are, focused on K-12, obviously. But for the fiscal year 26 budget, we have seen there was a proposal to cut education funding. This is overall Department of Education funding by about 15% or $12 billion. It calls for level funding of Title I, but actually an increase for IDEA Part B. So that's the grants to states. And so here really what the department is proposing is consolidating all of the programs that are under IDEA, except for the Infants and Families program, consolidating all of them into Part B. And so it would be about an increase of $667 million. But really what that means is that states would be getting it all in kind of a lump sum, and then states would be determining how they want to use that funding to support students and children with disabilities. It also provides or proposes basically a block grant where it would consolidate 18 programs into one K-12 education block grant, once again along the lines of returning education to the states. It would combine all of these programs, and then states can decide how they want to spend that funding, as long as it would be allowed in any of the activities that were consolidated into that program. I think the key here, though, is that this block grant would be worth about $2 billion, and it would be replacing 18 programs that in total represent about $6.5 billion. So overall, it's about a $4.5 billion cut to K-12 services. And then it also provides some programs that would not be included in the block grant, and therefore states would be responsible for covering those services out of their own budget. And it says that it specifically states that states would be, are better equipped to determine how they want to fit these services in their budget. And that would be, so specifically the programs would be Title III, that is support for English language acquisition and English language learners. Special programs for migrant students, so that's Title I, Part C. TRIO, Gear Up, these are two programs that we've already seen. There's been some opposition because they do have longstanding support, but those are programs for institutions of higher education to reach out to low-income students to encourage them to attend higher education, and then teacher quality partnership grants. So this is all, of course, just a proposal from the president. And now that it has officially gone to Congress, we'll see Congress kind of kick up in the appropriations process in full over the next 2 months. We are already very delayed when it comes to the appropriations process. Usually, of course, we see the president's budget in February or March. It's very typical for it to come out late in the first year of an administration, but that just means that the entire appropriations process will be a little delayed. And so there'll be a lot more crunch time if they want to move forward with each individual spending bill. And so we'll have to see how Congress moves forward. We expect, the hearings have already started. Secretary McMahon was in the Senate this morning talking about the budget proposal, but I think there's far more focus on budget reconciliation now. And so it's not until budget reconciliation is complete that we'll really see appropriations start in full. And so that brings me to, of course, budget reconciliation. And that's the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that we've seen already move through the House. Budget reconciliation is a very technical congressional procedure that is used, and we've seen it being used by both parties in both chambers recently, because it's a way of passing a bill through the Senate and bypassing the filibuster. So you only need a simple majority in the Senate to pass it, which is why we're seeing it increasingly used. So the American Rescue Plan was passed through reconciliation, Inflation Reduction Act, that was through reconciliation, and now we're seeing it being used once again. The House passed its version on May 22nd, and there's a lot of limits to what can be included in reconciliation. No discretionary funding can be touched in reconciliation. So Title I, IDEA, all of those discretionary funds cannot be included. There has to be a direct impact to the budget. So it's limited. And so what we're seeing overall is the priorities being put forward in this reconciliation bill are extending the tax credits of the previous Trump administration and providing some new tax credits, and then of course increasing funding for border and defense while also not adding too much to the deficit. And so most of where there's increases in funding, there is cuts as well. And I'll get to that in a second. Most notable for K-12 education specifically is the Educational Choice for Children's Act. And this would basically establish the first nationwide voucher program for K-12 education. It would be available to families up to 300% of the median gross income. So about 90% of families would be eligible, and this would be to attend any private school or for expenses for homeschooling in general with little to no accountability. It's structured as a tax credit, which is why we're seeing it in this bill, and it would be basically a dollar for dollar tax credit. Money is donated to a scholarship granting organization, and they're able to get that money back in full on their federal taxes. And right now it establishes about $20 billion over 4 years, so it's $5 billion each year. Related to education, but moving a little bit broader, is higher education. Like I said, the majority of K-12 education can't really be touched through a reconciliation due to the limit. So we have seen a lot of provisions mainly focused on higher education in an effort to streamline the federal student loan system and programs, as well as reduce the cost of higher education overall. And so we've seen they're setting new limits and changes to the requirements for Pell Grant. So for instance, right now, in order to be considered full-time and therefore to get the maximum Pell Grant, you have to be enrolled in 12 credit hours per semester, and this would, or per semester. And this would increase that to now being full-time would be 15 credit hours. And it also changes the Pell Grant formula. It streamlines the student loan and repayment options. So it eliminates unsubsidized loans. It puts limits on overall how much an individual can borrow over a lifetime. So for instance, say you borrow some funds, but then you also want to engage in a Parent Plus loan, you would be limited to, I think it's $200,000. It establishes workforce or short-term Pell. This has been a long-term bipartisan priority, but Congress just hasn't been able to get it across the finish line. And this would really just allow individuals to use Pell Grants outside of a 4-year university. They'd be able to use it for more short-term training programs or other type of, accreditation things. It increases the endowment tax. It puts it on a sliding scale depending on how big the institution is. And then it creates risk-sharing policies for institutions. So if an institution has a ton of graduates who are then in default for their student loans, institutions would be on the hook for that as well. And so I raise this, I think, in the context, obviously, of states. I'm not the expert here. You probably want to talk to your own state institutions, but understanding that this could limit the types of financial aid available to students moving forward, I think wouldn't impact states. When it comes to the impact on states, it's outside of education, really, and that's the cost shifts that will come through. We've seen proposals from both Medicaid and SNAP that would change the cost share model of both of those programs, which would increase the cost to states. So the last few things, and then I'm happy to get to questions if we have time, but I know it's tight. Some things that I think, especially for states, I think that you're all likely thinking about, obviously, is assessment and accountability. Congress is very, very, very far away from reauthorizing the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, most recently reauthorized as the Every Student Succeeds Act. That's really where we would see substantial changes to states' roles when it comes to accountability and assessment and providing maybe even more flexibility. In lieu of an actual full reauthorization and a changing of the current structure, of course, there are waivers available for states at the Department of Education. Secretary McMahon or President Trump have not openly talked about what their thought process will be when it comes to state waivers on assessment or accountability, but understanding that their priority is returning education to the states, I would imagine that they would likely defer to states on what they want to do there. Student privacy, we have seen as a longstanding bipartisan priority in both chambers, and so we expect that to be moving. That has a lot to do with protecting students' data online, but that also, when it comes to K-12, means that all of the devices that students are using in classrooms, that's going to come with a whole new set of requirements and regulations. And then, of course, it would also interact with any state laws that are already in place. So that's something to look for. We are waiting on a few cases from the Supreme Court that would talk about the future of E-rate, which is something that schools rely on heavily for connectivity, especially in rural areas. There will also be a ruling on kind of the standard for when families are able to engage in litigation around ADA, and then another one that would indicate the future of what types of opportunities families need to be provided from schools for opting out of certain curriculum. And then I think the last thing I just wanted to briefly highlight, because this is a priority of the administration, so we'll likely see some movement here, is around workforce development and career technical education. This has been listed as a priority numerous times, and so I think we'll likely see some movement in Congress on it. Whether or not they'll be able to get something passed, we don't know. But I think a reauthorization of WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, is pretty imminent, as well as potentially a Perkins reauthorization. So that is all from me.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas, for that excellent presentation. We apologize for the tight time frame and really appreciate you sticking to the 20 minutes. We have time for one question. Representative Camille has a question.
Oh gosh, I'm the only one. Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I actually have one question, but one item of clarification. The clarification questions on the budget reconciliation bill page, the third bullet where it talks about $20 billion for 4 years with $5 billion per year. Is that a sunset provision that's in that, or is that just what they're anticipating for the first 4 years?
So it's a limitation on how much can be spent within the tax credit.
Okay.
There's limitations in reconciliation on how long they can spend money for, and so that's what they came to.
Thank you for clarifying that. But my actual question is there flexibility with regards to to this tax credit, to the federal voucher program? Are there possibilities for states to create reporting requirements or transparency so that we know how funds are being spent, how they're using the federal tax credits?
Not right now. They have specifically, it's been very straightforward in terms of it's a tax credit, and they have not put a lot of regulations or rules around it. But once again, going to the administration's deferral to states, I would imagine that they might allow for implementing additional accountability standards if that's what the state wants to do.
Awesome. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Ms. Thomas, for that presentation. I'm sure things will change tomorrow. And so this, as you said, this is just a snapshot of what's currently going on in Washington. And hopefully you can appear maybe in the future again once we know more as we get close to our budget session. So thank you so much for appearing.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, we have educational leadership training opportunities in Kentucky. If the group from the Kentucky Department of Education would come forward and attempt to get settled here. This segment of our meeting today arose from some meetings we had at SREB a few years ago. I, as chair, along with co-chair Lewis and co-chair Tipton, attend SREB meetings along with several other members here on the committee. And as part of that SREB meeting, we had in-depth information on a survey taken of teachers as to why they were leaving the profession, why things weren't going well for them. And I automatically assumed that it would be teacher pay, discipline in the classroom size, things of that nature. But this study actually showed, an in-depth study showed that it was leadership in the building, how that leadership in the building affected them, and it really dictated how they performed as a teacher. Once we got back to Frankfort after that meeting, it's been a year or two ago, we had an OEA study on how things were going in Kentucky, and that OEA study basically said the same exact thing and showed the same results. Each member of the committee should have received that report. The name of the report is Student Achievement Lessons Learned from Kentucky's Highest and Lowest Performing Schools. That's on the LRC website for your review if you want to get into that, but it basically confirmed that. So the purpose of this segment of the meeting today is to let everyone know that it's the wish of the Senate and hopefully the House. I can't speak for the House, but that we would take a more organized approach to providing leadership training to our people in the building, to principals and others in administrative roles, and that's the ultimate goal. And before we can carry out that goal, I thought we would find out what is currently happening in the state of Kentucky. What are the various organizations doing as it pertains to leadership? And so the way this will go today, just so you know, Unfortunately, we're behind on time as usual, but we have 10 minutes for each segment. So you guys will have 10 minutes for your segment, and then each additional group after that will have 10 minutes. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. Just make sure your green light is on, state your name for the record, and proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Foster. I'm the Associate Commissioner of the Office of Continuous Improvement Support at KDE.
Hi, Beth Hargis, Associate Commissioner over the Office of Career and Technical Education.
Hello, Meredith Brewer. I'm the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness.
Good afternoon. I'm Greta Hilton, and I'm the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Special Education and Early Learning.
And I believe our Chief Academic Officer, Mickey Marinelli, she had to leave the Zoom, so I'll cover her information today. We are sharing information about leadership opportunities that the Kentucky Department of Education offers to schools and districts across the state. The first one that I'll talk about is the National Institute for School Leadership. It is a nationally recognized leadership development program designed to help school and district leaders transform schools into high-performing learning environments. And the key to this opportunity is that we have Kentucky educators, KD staffs trained as the facilitators. So we're able to take NISL's curriculum and then ensure that all of the state statutes and regulations that tie back to education are also covered during that training. We have been doing this training for district and school leaders since 2013. Another initiative coming out of my office is cognitive coaching, and this is an 8-day intensive training that happens each semester. And once again, we are using this training with building level as well as district level educators to help really build their coaching expertise when it comes to leadership. We all know that the key piece of that school transformation and moving a school forward is the school leader. So this training really focuses on how to coach your teachers, how central office staff can coach principals. We also focus on the school improvement planning for performance excellence training. And this is actually assisting leadership teams by increasing participants' understandings of using a performance excellence systems approach to continuous improvement, really building systems at the building level to support teachers and students, as well as building systems at the district level to help support the schools. Also, a key to quality leadership is being able to communicate from the district level to the school level to the community, as we talked about earlier in the presentation around local accountability. So we also have a communication training for school leaders across the state. We offer a session in the fall as well as in the spring, and it's a 3-part series. And the last one out of my office, we partner with Carnegie to talk about the advancement of teaching, and this training focuses on a variety of different professional learning opportunities to really use a comprehensive view, looking at educational networks across the state as well as across the district and how to build that knowledge in school and district leaders. Oh, and the last one is a continuous improvement summit. It is every September in Lexington at the Central Bank Center. This year it is September 22nd and 23rd, so I would invite all of you all to attend that. We typically have over 1,000 educators, and we are highlighting the strong pieces of best practices that we see across the state in our school buildings and districts. And the key to this conference is that we have Kentucky educators sharing their improvement journeys from across the state.
And in our state-operated area technology centers, at a minimum, our leadership training takes the form of professional learning communities, grant opportunities, service projects, attendance at state and national leadership events, and we also provide one-to-one coaching for all of our staff. Next slide, please. And so why is this so critical? And our ultimate goal, we're training students. And so to that end, it's critical that all of our instructors and our administrators are fully equipped with pedagogical and andragogical leadership skills. And we're obviously dealing with both a CTE teacher shortage as well as CTE administrator shortages. And so we're working with current CTE instructors that voice that they would like to have an administrative role at some point, and we're providing one-on-one training for them as to what the expectations might be. We also have a 2-year program offered to new occupation-based CTE instructors, providing leadership skills really just to manage the classroom and make sure that they're coming back the next day. And so we are finishing up a 2-year project with the Southern Region Educational Board, which has worked with our existing principals, not only to just identify their current leadership skills, but really to enhance those and to develop new ones and see them through to implementation. So I hope this demonstrates some diverse leadership opportunities for our staff, for both and all of our staff and our students.
My office supports the certified evaluation planning that each of our districts puts into place to evaluate our certified educators, which includes our administrators. So I wanted to make sure to draw your attention to the professional standards for educational leaders, also referred to as PSEL. Those are the criteria that all of our principals and assistant principals are evaluated against. And those are 10 interdependent standards that reflect leadership work and best practices for administrators. Next slide. We do have in my team, a small but mighty team of 3 representatives for the Principal Partnership Project. We have, they are all former principals, and they provide a variety of services to our administrators. They have the Principal Network that is specific to administrators, and they provide opportunities for networking and collaboration. They have recently started the assistant principal cohort because we know assistant principals have unique experiences and challenges, and so they created that opportunity for our assistant principals to come together and work collaboratively. They also host a very popular Ed Camp, which is an opportunity for administrators to join in professional learning. Recently, that became a virtual conference, which allowed our very busy administrators an opportunity to participate more readily. I did want to point out, even though today we're talking about traditional administrative roles, we do have within my office opportunities for leadership development for our classroom teachers, which includes national board certification, being a Go Teach ambassador, serving as a mentor as part of our mentorship and induction programs that take place in our school districts, as well as opportunities for professional advancement. You can pursue rank change, as well as adding endorsements onto their certificates. So in addition to the critical role of leaders in those more traditional settings, such as principals and assistant principals, developing leadership within our educators is also a critical part of the equation.
Thank you. So in the Office of Special Education and Early Learning, we focus on building the capacity of local directors of special education as well as preschool coordinators. And day to day, we offer direct support and services as well as beginning of year and end of year regional trainings. But I wanted to call your attention to 4 areas that go into a bit of a deeper dive, if you will, for leadership capacity growth. And the first being OSIL Guides, which is a monthly webinar series that we started around 2024 because at that time we surveyed our directors of special education and realized that 52%, or about 89, of our local directors of special education had 5 years or less experience in their role. And there's one director of special education typically for the entire district, so they don't have a lot of people to lean on within their home district. So we created this mentor opportunity for them to be able to work with and get support from retired and former doses. We also do Kentucky Leads, which was a 5-year, $1 million grant from USAID that's winding down. 5 years later, we have seen 75 scholars go through this program, 45 of which have already completed either a Level 1 or Level 2 Director of Special Education certification. This includes some tuition assistance as well as Saturday seminars and annual conferences with national and state and regional leaders. We expect 15 more to complete this before winding down on our federal funds, and hopefully we're able to utilize some of our state share restricted funds to continue this program, because the evaluation component has documented that I think 98% of the scholars that went through this have considered it to be highly effective. 97% of their supervisors have referred to these folks as standouts within their local districts, and the majority of the first 3 cohorts are in some type of leadership position within their home districts. We also have the special education traineeship, which is actually it's aimed toward teachers, but it's we believe that the support of teachers also grow good leaders. And so we have had this program using our federal state share restricted IDA Part B funds since 2002. Over the past 23 years, there have been nearly 1,700 scholars that have completed their special education certification through this tuition assistance that's provided through my office. We currently, I think last year we had just over 200 complete, and then we anticipate about that many this year as well. And then lastly, we have our Director of Special Education Institute, which includes directors of special education as well as preschool coordinators, because they often have the same role in smaller districts. This is a event that we have every other year. We bring them together across the state, as well as our regional directors and preschool coordinators, and the focus on being on instructional leadership practices.
Now we'll move to specific leadership opportunities for literacy. We currently have 700 administrators.
If you could try to wrap it up here.
700,
quick as you can.
700 administrators participating in the letters training for administrators. We also have 33 districts involved in the Early Literacy Leadership Network. We also have 8 regional coaches that coach principals specifically around the literacy and the letters program. We also have the summer conference every June that focuses on the Kentucky Read to Succeed work. And then on this final slide, you will see the additional leadership opportunities that are math specific across the state. And we appreciate the opportunity this afternoon to share this information with you.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. I wish we had more time, but that you did what we needed you to do, provide a snapshot of what's currently happening. I can guarantee you this won't be the last time we're talking about this in the near future. So look forward to working with you in the future, and thank you for the presentation. Up next, the Green River Regional Cooperative. Whenever you are settled, this isn't your first time here, I don't think. Make sure your green light's on. State your name for the record and proceed. I need you to stick within 10 minutes if you can, please. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Senator West. Normally at time at GREC, and when people have been setting for a while, we would ask you to get up and do some jumping jacks or toe touches or something, but we're not going to do that today in the essence of time, and to prevent potential injury, we'll just jump right in.
I can't do toe touch.
I realize as I get older, they keep getting further and further away, I feel like. My name is Bart Fleener. I'm the CEO at Green River Regional Educational Cooperative, better known as GREC, located in Bowling Green, Kentucky, in my 5th year in that role.
I'm Cassie Zinner, and I'm the Chief Learning Officer at GREC.
Thank you. Senator West, you spoke so well to the survey, talking about teachers and talking about why they do leave their profession. Leadership guru John Maxwell he's got lots of leadership laws, but one is the law of the lid, which says an organization is limited by the leader's capabilities. You know, they can only grow and go as high as a leader can help them go. My friend, Dr. Jim Flynn, I think he's in the audience today. I'll call him a leadership guru as well. He says people don't quit their job, they quit their leader. And so we know that. We know it's vital. And in my first year at GREC, we started talking about leadership opportunities and ways to grow leaders in districts. In our second year, we launched the Leadership Coaching Academy. And while we did focus on school principals and assistant principals, we also thought about folks like transportation directors in a district, food service directors. Anybody that's leading a team in a district was able to join our Leadership Coaching Academy. And we really focused on the 3 strands that you see on your screen today for those leaders: organizational systems, communication strategies, and then managing self, which also includes self-care. You see a lot of leaders in schools that are just grinding and grinding and grinding away, and then they grind down to nothing, and they can't keep doing it. And due to burnout and other reasons, they do step away from their role as a leader. So we were excited to launch that Leadership Coaching Academy. We found that we had a lot of principals, a lot of assistant principals, and lots of teachers who were looking to be leaders in their buildings join that Leadership Coaching Academy. It has certainly evolved during my time at GREC, and with the help of folks like Cassie, we have made some changes and updates to our program over the years, and I'm going to tag team with her at this time.
These are the learning targets that we use when we engage participants within our Leadership Coaching Academy events. We are fortunate enough at our facility to have large training rooms, so we can bring in up to 200 leaders at one time when we host these events. And so we don't focus on all 5 of these at once. The one that I would like to bring your attention to is the second bulleted item. Because the feedback that we've been given after we host events from our participants is that they find this one the most valuable. And we make sure that we spend a lot of time focusing on how to have critical conversations. And even with principals, experience some in their first couple of years, we model that during that training. Here are some steps to follow. We bring some of them in front of the room. Here's how we model that conversation, because we know that feedback from teachers is that a lot of times the leader, the principal, may think that they're having a critical conversation with the teacher, but then when they leave that office or they leave the school that day, they don't recognize that as a critical conversation. It's like that communication didn't happen. So we make sure that we spend a lot of time around the communication strategies and modeling how to have critical conversations. We have different iterations that we provide for this training. We offer a 2-day in-person, one in the fall, one in the spring. That's for any leader, regardless of what their role in the district is. And then we also offer a more intensive through our Leadership Coaching Academy. And so how that differs from that leading series is for the Leadership Coaching Academy, we have mentors through our staff at GREC. So for example, I served as a mentor to 5 principals this past school year. And so they would come to us on those 2 or 3 days throughout the year. But then I also spent time going into their school buildings, and I was available through text, a Zoom, phone call as needed. And then one last plug here, one thing that we're doing new for this year, we have 29 networks at GREC. And so networks are collaborative opportunities for like roles in districts. So one of the networks that we have is a principal network. We have an assistant principal network. We have one for DPPs, district instructional facilitators. And so when we have our network meetings for principals, we make sure that all of the content and the professional learning that we offer is through the lens of those 3 strands. It's either communication strategies, organizational systems, or managing self. I will put a plug in and say that our friends at KDE, we also run our networks for principals parallel to the P3 partnership project. And so the meetings that they have throughout the year, we bring our entire group on that same day to participate in their meeting. But then we also have additional times outside of those P3 dates where we engage with our networks. The other new thing that we're doing this year, going back to our networks, so think about 29 networks, that's a huge group that we serve. The network leadership symposiums, so we're having 3 days throughout the year this year where we're inviting anyone from any of those 29 networks to attend these symposium days. They're structured with keynotes in the morning, again, all focused around communication strategies, organizational systems, and managing self. You can see the dates here. Those are open to anyone across the state. So even though we particularly serve a certain region at GREC, we do offer these for partners across the state. You can go back, you can scan this QR code, click on that link, and you can find more information about those events.
Yes. In closing, I think we circle back to the 3 strands. we're always focusing on these. And even as we continue to evolve, we're going to keep coming back to those. I'll also make a plug today. You see our logo, Green River Regional Educational Cooperative, but I have 7 siblings around the state that lead the other educational cooperatives as well. And so all of us are doing principal leadership. All of us are doing teacher leaderships. It's what we do as cooperatives. We educate educators. And I appreciate the support that you as legislators provide our cooperatives and provide Kentucky's public education system in all the ways that you support us. But if I can make a plea on behalf of my siblings, it would be anything you can do in the coming session to find ways to actively support this principal leadership growth. We're here and willing to help continue to do those programs. And we've talked about working smarter, not harder together. It's one of the reasons we got with KDE was the 8 of us regularly meet as co-op directors. And we said, we're all doing principal development and we're all creating our own programs. KDE is doing this 3 or 4 times a year. So that's why we came together twice a year and ran some concurrent programs and are willing to continue to look for ways to do that in the future with my other cooperative directors. Any of them could have been sitting here today telling you about the great things they're doing around the state as well in their cooperatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the excellent presentation. As stated before, I wish we had time for questions, but I want to let you know that this is the point where we're bringing stakeholders in, and we consider the co-op stakeholder. And excellent presentation. I'm sure this will be the initial phase of the conversation. Thank you for the good work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Up next on the agenda, we have the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. Once again, once you get settled, make sure your green light is on. You've got about 10 minutes to present. If you could stay on track with that, we'd appreciate it. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Chairman West, and thank you so much, Co-Chair Lewis and members of the committee. We are really happy and excited and honored to be with you today. My name is Beth Davison. I'm a Senior Vice President with the Kentucky Chamber, and I lead the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. We are the parent, our parent organization is the Kentucky Chamber, and out of the foundation, we run programmatic work. With me today is Dr. Bob Lawson, who is the Superintendent of Henderson County Schools, longtime partner to the Kentucky Chamber Foundation and the work we do. Our testimony will be under 10 minutes, we're going to promise, and we will focus on the Leadership Institute for School Principals program. It has been around for 13 years. This is a program that utilizes the best practices of businesses and what they know to be true, and what we've heard said today is that employees don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers. And so 13 years ago, the business community got together with the education community to form the Leadership Institute for School Principals program. And you will see through Dr. Lawson's testimony that we have seen and experienced in this program increased math scores, increased reading scores. Our principals that run and lead their schools tend to be higher levels of blue ribbon schools, and we see higher levels of teacher retention that come out of this program. I think it's important to know that this program, the curriculum is research-based through the Truist Leadership Institute. This is an institute that a lot of corporations from across the country will send their executive leaders to. They have operated these programs for education principal leadership throughout the country. We're the only state that they work with the state chamber on. Proud moment of privilege to brag. They will tell you that Kentucky's program is the best because the business community is so heavily involved. But every year we send principals down in North Carolina in cohort fashion to go and learn about leadership, and then they spend the next 9 months together in and out of sessions learning and growing as leaders. This program, as I said before, it's immersive, it's research-based, it's peer-on-peer cohort model. We do personalized assessments that are confidential to the principals and the Truist Leadership Institute. So if you've heard of 360s before, these are done in businesses often, where you get a 360 assessment of how your employees are considering the leader's performance, where they're doing well, where they've got some opportunities. They take these 360 performance tests in the beginning of the program and then again by the time that they get out. So over the years, we've had 600 principals come out of this program. We have not published research on it. It's not what our program's equipped to do. We put about 45 principals through this model every year. We've gotten 112 out of 120 counties to participate. We are coming for the remaining 8 counties when the time is right. And it's also important to note that this program is 100% funded by the business community. And I think that has helped its longevity. So we get in-kind support. The program itself is $17,500 per principal. And what that looks like is that Truist will kick in $12,500 of in-kind support. And then we have a business support their local principal at a scholarship of $5,500 to get us the rest of the way there. What we love about this is that businesses and take real ownership over the education outcomes in their community by supporting principals in this way. So for instance, Appalachia Regional Health, Holly Harris, when that CEO came into her role, it was very important for her to look around at the bench of education leaders that we had. And she made a 3-year commitment right then and there, her first year as CEO, to help put principals through this program. We've seen ripple effects. You saw Jesse Bacon, Superintendent Bacon up earlier, who helps lead his school district. He's a proud graduate. And now every principal that he has on his team will go through the program. So the Leadership Institute for School Principals program is governed by a board that is 50% Kentucky Chamber members and then 50% education leaders. I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Dr. Bob Lawson, so he can share with you his own experiences as a graduate, but then also the Henderson community and what's happened since 15 principals have now gone through this program in that district.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Here. There we go. Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Thank you, Senator West, and thank you to this committee for allowing me some time here to speak on behalf of the Leadership Institute for School Principals. It's an honor. I took a very traditional route to educational leadership. I was a school teacher, coach, assistant principal, then became a principal. I think that's likely the path for most educational leaders. And in that, I had many opportunities at professional development, many trainings, and those largely were about leading others. And really enjoyed those, saw a lot of professional development from those. What was different in the school leadership for school principals is it's about self-awareness. It's about self-development. It's about leading self well, and then we lead others well. It's foundationally important and aligned with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Parts of the program immediately dig into our biases. It digs into our triggers, digs into our success scripts and what's helped us along the way, as well as our blind spots. As a few of my colleagues mentioned earlier, even as principals, as we learned, we still have blind spots that we need to be coached up in. It helps as a principal to learn why we lead a certain way. As she mentioned, I now have been superintendent of Henderson County Schools for 5 years, and a great number of our principals, we're up to 18 total now, and with 3 more coming this next year. So we intend to continue to send our principals to this. In fact, we found it so important that we our schools that are achieving the highest and have the most consistent high scores, or our schools that have seen incremental growth over time, what I found as superintendent is those schools, the common denominator is that they're led by someone who has been a Leadership for School Principals graduate. So in 2023, I did a case study in our district. In meeting with our principals, 2 of the principals who have been principals for National Blue Ribbon Schools, I sat down with them. And of course, we all want to replicate them. And I said to them, not only do your students achieve at very high levels, but your staff stays here. And as I walk around your building, they're happy to be here. They're enjoying their job. It seems purposeful. And everyone's doing a great job. What's your secret? How is it that we replicate that in the district? How is it that I provide better professional development and training to help others achieve this goal as well? And they said, Bob, we appreciate everything you're doing to help train the folks in our district. But the number one thing for us has been the Leadership Institute for School Principals, because it dug into who they are as people and who they are as leaders. From that point since, we began to push, we studied the data, and it held true that schools who were led by principals who had been through the Leadership Institute for School Principals were achieving at higher levels than our schools that had principals who had not been through that. In addition, in Henderson County, we have been the number one place to work the last 4 years, and much of that is brought back to the leadership of those principals. I'd only like to finish with saying, on my part, to say that Dr. Fletcher gave a very robust new assessment and accountability system, and it will take great leadership from all of us. I know that there are teachers and principals on this committee, and it will take all of us. It will take you as legislators. And I know that it's important to you, as it is our commissioner, and to all of us in education to lead our schools well. As Mr. Fleener said, everything rises and falls on leadership. I believe it's our best opportunity to invest where it has the most effect is to invest in our principals. And if we could broaden the scope of the Leadership Institute for School Principals, I believe it gives them the best training possible. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I can't say anything better than Dr. Lawson just did, but just will leave this committee with the offering that if there's anything we can do to help as you all explore additional ways to train up our principals and take care of our most precious asset, our children, our future workforce. We've got 13 years of graduates of this program that we can study what's gone well and what hasn't. We'd be happy to help publish a research report, use best practices, anything we can do to help level up this level of training for our business leaders in the same way that we see, or for our principals in the same way that we see our business leaders do. So thank you so much to this committee. We appreciate and value your time.
Thank you so much for the presentation. As is usual with this committee, we probably could have spent the entire committee meeting on this one subject and allowed more time for questions. That's my fault. Hopefully I'll know better next time. We'll see. But thank you for the
We're
presentation.
still around, Senator West, so anything you need,
There
let
will
us
be
know.
continued advancement in this subject, I can guarantee you. And I really would like to know more about the Truist Academy, that situation. Thank you
Absolutely.
so
We'll
much.
follow up with your team. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, our final presenter today, we have the Kentucky Association of School Administrators. You're no stranger to this committee. As is usual, make sure your green light's on. State your name for the record. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
It is now good afternoon. So we are very aware that we are last on the agenda, and we're going to work to be very efficient with your time. My name is Rhonda Caldwell from the Kentucky Association of School Administrators.
I'm Kathy Fields, also with Kentucky Association of School Administrators.
And a quick question from me. Do I need to pull our presentation up from here, or?
Yes, you do.
Thank you, sir.
And the gentleman behind you will be more than happy to assist. If you
This one? Got it. Here we go.
And if you hit F5, it should take care of that works too.
All right, there we go. All right. Thank you. I apologize for that.
You're welcome. Please proceed.
So the Kentucky Association of School Administrators, more commonly known as KASA, is a community of 3,400 school leaders who are very focused, representing every district in our Commonwealth. And my colleague here, Dr. Kathy Fields, she's a longtime educator and former superintendent who is joining me here today because today she leads our leadership development. And a little bit about us, we serve both building levels and such as assistant principals, counselors, and our district level leaders, including superintendents and the various directors that are needed to oversee our school districts. And so since 1969, we've been committed to developing strong leaders. That's the heart and soul of our mission statement and our vision. And this is accomplished through innovative programs and strategies that are woven into the everyday fabric of our work. And so grateful for the invitation today, Senator West and Co-Chair Lewis, to discuss the critical support that our school principals need to navigate the challenges that you are all well aware of here in Kentucky today. The conversation is about effective leadership, and it is about exceptional principals leading exceptional schools. And so what we know that they do that's a little bit different than other leaders in any profession is to maintain high expectations for students and staff. They show high levels of support for our teachers. They engage in instructional monitoring, and they drive positive school culture. And so these 4 steps, they're key to a principal's ability to rally everyone around common goals and ultimately achieve the vision that we all are on board here for in the state of Kentucky. And so to be an exceptional leader begins with equipping them. And today, the approach from this brief presentation is really just to show you our approach here at KASA. And so understanding the complexities and the challenges that the school leaders face, we have to be dedicated and focused on where they are, offering ongoing programming that's designed to equip them as they meet us, working in a job that is always 24/7. And so this slide provides an overview of our approach to professional learning, with leadership being foundational to all of our work. And so when I talk about leadership, you can know that all of our work is grounded in the Leadership Challenge, and that is the work of Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner since the mid-1980s. And leadership, at the end of the day, leadership is a choice between those who aspire to lead and those who choose to follow. And we need everyone to be willing to follow that leader, and that makes it important, more so important, that that leadership is exceptional. And we at KASA, we take this very seriously. And so our audience, you can see here on this slide, it is a principal, it is the assistant principal, and it is the aspiring leader just as well. But it's also important to know that leadership development can't be a one-time event. It must be just in time, it must be ongoing, it must be embedded in the fabric, and it must be scalable, whether it is for one leader or for 2,000 leaders. And of course, professional CEUs and even some really productive partnerships with some of our universities where we're able to offer university credit. And so our structure here at KASA provides opportunity and access to a wide range of training options to our 3,400 school leaders. And so Kathy, leading our leadership development, is here to share not only her experience as a leader, but what our specific programming looks like.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. Earlier this morning, you heard Dr. Fletcher talking about the changing landscape of our schools. Global education appears to be at the forefront of Kentucky education. We need to equip our leaders to be there for these exciting challenges. And as Dr. Caldwell has said, we are a holistic leadership approach that has been in existence since 1969. And what that means is that we address the unique needs of every leader, but we must then anticipate what those needs are going to be in a dynamic education landscape, which you've heard about today. The Wallace Foundation, of course, research indicates that principal turnover and leadership instability are significantly negative factors on teacher retention and student achievement. And these factors are often related directly to missed opportunities to grow and support our leaders. As a former principal, as a former district and building level administrator, and also as a superintendent of Jessamine County Schools, I know that good leadership can be achieved through preparation programs, but great leadership is underpinned with scaffolding and support of specific needs-based and research-based learning experiences, such as what Dr. Caldwell has alluded to in our Leadership Challenge. Here on this slide, you see multiple leadership growth opportunities currently meeting the needs of support of over 1,600 building and district level administrators. It is offered in a statewide format. Each learning experience is based on the tenets of best practice and embedded with administrative evaluation standards. They meet the needs of our learning experiences through our growth plans for our aspiring leaders, as well as our new and mature leaders. And again, each program grounded in research-based practices. Many of our most successful leaders in our Commonwealth today attribute their developmental leadership growth to KASA and to the underpinnings of the Leadership Challenge and our principal support networks. Strong leadership underpinning yields stronger leaders, which in turn support and nurture teachers and ultimately creates stronger levels of student achievement, which is what we are here about.
So all of KASA's work is predicated on the research. What does the research tell us? So when we consider Wallace Foundation, SREB, OEA, and even our own KASA research recently through the Coalition to Sustain the Education Profession, of which a shout out to Representative Jackson, who right now is very engaged in that work. It all comes down to, at the end of the day, exceptional leadership. Take any corporation, any business, any team, any community, any school, we are only as strong as that leader. And so exceptional schools begin with exceptional principals, and this is who and what KASA aims to do with each individual leader in the ever-changing landscape of serving our students and our families in Kentucky today. So we are so grateful for your time, and most importantly, we're grateful for the focus and the lens that you are placing on principal leadership. We are ready to be an active partner and look forward to sharing more.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Wish we had more time for questions, but as you've seen from early in the presentation, this will be an ongoing topic that we'll be focusing on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was the final presenter for today. Up next on the agenda, we have the consideration of referred administrative regulations. If the agency representatives would come forward and identify themselves for the record. You both are used to the Administrative Regs Committee, so this is pretty normal. Just as a reminder to everyone on the committee, especially the new members, you have the administrative regs that flow through the Administrative Regs Committee, and once they go through that committee, then they go to the Committee of Jurisdiction. So this today is 704 KR 3095. The Education Committee is the Committee of Jurisdiction. This is the time we would take action or not take action on this particular regulation. Do we have any members that have any questions whatsoever on 704 KR 3095? Representative Bojanowski.
So I read over the changes. Can you just kind of explain, because it doesn't seem to be much change in this reg?
Yes, thank you, Representative Bojanowski. So this is actually a new administrative regulation to put in place more formally the process that the Kentucky Board of Education will use to designate the Kentucky Non-Public Schools Commission as the entity responsible for selecting accrediting bodies and then presenting to the Kentucky Board of Education those non-public schools to be approved by the state board. They've previously performed that function for many years pursuant to statute, but it wasn't formally laid out in an administrative regulation, and this sets forth the process that they will use to perform those functions. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Any other questions on this regulation? Seeing none, we don't need a motion. This regulation will go into effect having no action been taken. Thank you so much for that. We have one final order of business today. Representative Jackson has an announcement, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman West. I found out this morning that there's a young lady with us that's going to be retiring at the end of this month after 31 years with KDE. Miss Rhonda Sims. Rhonda's the outgoing Director of Assessment and Accountability. And for the last few years, I've worked closely with her. Rhonda will not tell you what you want to hear. She will tell you what you need to hear. And I appreciate that, but she has been so good to work with over the last few years on some of my education bills. So, Rhonda, thank you very much for your 31 years at KDE and specifically all your help to me over the last few years. Happy retirement.
Ms. Thank you, Representative Jackson. Well deserved. Really been nice to work with you, Mrs. Sims, over the years. You do a great job. Do we have any other business to come before this committee?